I was 28 years old when I finally understood what my grandmother's silence meant. 28 years of living in the same house where she raised me. 28 years of watching her hands shake when she poured coffee. 28 years of thinking it was just age, just nerves, just the way some people are. I remember the kitchen had this yellow wallpaper with tiny roosters on it. Awful wallpaper. The kind that was probably put up in the 70s and never changed. My grandmother, Ruth, she'd stand at that sink every morning at 6, washing dishes from the night before, and I'd hear the water running from my room upstairs. Always the same rhythm: the faucet on, the faucet off, the clink of plates, the sound of her humming something I could never quite place. I grew up thinking that was just what grandmothers did. They woke early, they cleaned, they hummed songs no one else knew. My parents died when I was 3, car accident on Route 9 during a snowstorm in March. I don't remember them, not really, just flashes that might be photographs I've seen too many times. A red scarf, a laugh, the smell of something burning in the oven. Ruth took me in without hesitation, everyone said, without question. She was a saint, the neighbors told me when I was old enough to understand. She gave up everything for you, Mallory. Everything. I believed them. Why wouldn't I? She was the only mother I'd ever known. The house was in a small town in upstate New York, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone and nothing ever really changed. Main Street had a diner, a hardware store, a pharmacy with a soda fountain that closed in 2009. Our house was on Maple, 3 blocks from the elementary school, white siding, green shutters, a porch that sagged on one side. Ruth never fixed it. Money was always tight, she'd say, always something more important than a porch. I had the smallest bedroom upstairs. It faced the backyard where Ruth kept a garden. Tomatoes mostly, some beans, flowers along the fence that she never seemed happy with. My room had slanted ceilings and a window that stuck in the summer. I'd lie there at night listening to the house settle and wondering why Ruth never sang the songs she hummed, why she only ever hummed them. I asked her once, when I was maybe 7 or 8, "Grandma, what's that song?" She stopped humming. "Just something old," she said, "from a long time ago." "Can you teach me the words?" She didn't look at me. "Some songs don't have words, Mallory. Some songs are just sounds." I didn't understand that then. I do now. Oh, God, I do now. Ruth worked at the library in town, part-time, shelving books, checking them in and out, helping people find things they were looking for. She'd come home smelling like old paper and dust. I loved that smell. I'd hug her when she walked in and breathe it in like it was something precious. She'd pat my head, gentle, and then move past me to start dinner. Always the same routine: her coat on the hook, her shoes by the door, her hands under cold water at the sink before she touched anything else. I thought it was about germs, being clean. Now I know it was something else. She was washing something off that I couldn't see. When I was in middle school, I started noticing things, small things. The way Ruth flinched when someone knocked on the door unexpectedly. The way she never talked about her own childhood, never mentioned her parents or where she grew up. When I'd ask, she'd get this look on her face, distant, like she was seeing something far away that hurt to look at. "We moved around a lot when I was young," she'd say. "Nothing worth talking about." But that didn't make sense. She'd lived in this house for 40 years. The neighbors said so. Mrs. Chen next door told me Ruth bought the place in 1982, lived here ever since, never moved, never traveled, never even left town except for groceries in the next county over. So what did she mean by "we moved around a lot"? I asked her again when I was 15. "Grandma, where did you grow up?" She was folding laundry, my laundry. She always folded my clothes with this careful precision, smoothing out every wrinkle, lining up every seam. "Pennsylvania," she said quietly. "We lived in Pennsylvania." "Whereabouts?" "Different places. Mallory, can you set the table?" She changed the subject. She always changed the subject. I started keeping a list in my head of things Ruth wouldn't talk about: her parents, her childhood, why she never married, why she never had friends over, why she never left the house after dark, why she kept every curtain closed even during the day, why she had 3 locks on the front door and 2 on the back, why she checked them 4 times every night before bed. I thought maybe she was just anxious. Some people are, right? Some people just need things a certain way to feel safe. But there was something else. Something in her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. Something like fear. No, not fear. Something worse. Something like shame. I graduated high school in 2014. I'd gotten into college 2 hours away. Not far, but far enough. Ruth was happy for me, I think. She smiled when I showed her the acceptance letter. She hugged me. But her hands were shaking worse than usual. "You'll come home on weekends," she said. It wasn't a question. It was almost like a plea. "Of course I will," I told her. "Of course I will." But I didn't. Not every weekend. College was freedom. It was noise and people and late nights and everything that house on Maple Street wasn't. I came home for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, for spring break, but the space between visits grew longer, and every time I came back, Ruth seemed smaller, quieter, more like she was disappearing into that yellow wallpaper. I graduated college, got a job in the city, marketing firm, decent salary, nothing special. I'd call Ruth every Sunday. "How are you, Grandma?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. How are you?" "Good. Work's good." "That's wonderful." The conversations were short, hollow, like we'd forgotten how to talk to each other, or maybe we never knew how. I came home for her 75th birthday, May 16th, 2018. I brought a cake from a bakery in the city, chocolate with vanilla frosting because that's what she always liked. I brought candles. I brought a card. The house looked the same. The porch still sagged. The shutters still needed paint. Ruth answered the door in the same cardigan she'd worn for a decade, pale blue with buttons that didn't match. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Happy birthday, Grandma." "Oh, Mallory, you didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd eaten breakfast for 18 years, and I watched her blow out the candles. She closed her eyes for a long time before she did it, like she was making a wish she knew wouldn't come true. We ate cake in silence. The clock on the wall ticked, the refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a dog was barking. Ruth kept looking at her hands. I should have asked her then. I should have asked what was wrong, but I didn't. I just ate my cake and told her about work, about my apartment, about things that didn't matter. And she nodded and smiled and said, "That's nice, sweetheart. That's really nice." When I left that night, she stood at the door watching me walk to my car. I waved. She lifted her hand, slow, like it weighed 100 pounds. I drove away. I didn't know that was the last birthday I'd ever spend with her. I didn't know that in 3 months, everything I thought I knew about Ruth would unravel. I didn't know the woman who raised me had been carrying a secret so heavy it had bent her spine. I didn't know anything. I really thought I did, but I didn't know a single goddamn thing. The call came on a Tuesday in August. I was at work, sitting in a conference room pretending to care about quarterly projections, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I should have let it go to voicemail, but something made me step out into the hallway and pick up. "Hello? Is this Mallory Chung?" "Yes? Who is this?" "This is Carol Hendricks. I'm a social worker with St. Mary's Hospital in Hudson Falls. Your grandmother, Ruth Chen, was brought in this morning. She collapsed at the library." My stomach dropped. "Is she okay?" "She's stable, but we need you to come as soon as possible. There are some things we need to discuss." I was in my car within 10 minutes. The drive from the city to Hudson Falls usually took 2 hours. I made it in 90 minutes. I don't remember most of that drive, just the way my hands gripped the steering wheel, the way my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I kept thinking about her standing at that door on her birthday, the way she'd looked so small, the way her hand had lifted like it was the hardest thing she'd ever done. The hospital was the same one where I was born, where my parents had been pronounced dead 25 years ago. I'd only been there once since then, when I was 12 and broke my wrist falling off my bike. Ruth had sat with me for 6 hours in the emergency room, holding my good hand, telling me everything would be fine. I found Carol Hendricks at the nurse's station on the 3rd floor. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, dark hair pulled back, kind eyes that had seen too much. "Miss Chen?" "Yes." "Thank you for coming so quickly. Your grandmother is resting. She's going to be okay physically. The collapse was due to severe dehydration and malnutrition. We're running more tests, but she should recover." I felt my legs go weak. Malnutrition? How? Carol gestured to a small waiting room. Can we talk privately? We sat in plastic chairs under fluorescent lights that made everything look sickly. There was a vending machine in the corner, humming the same way Ruth's refrigerator hummed. Carol pulled out a folder. When your grandmother was brought in, we ran standard evaluations. During the intake, she became very distressed. She kept asking for someone named Marie. She kept saying she was sorry. She kept saying it wasn't her fault. I didn't know anyone named Marie. I told Carol that. Carol nodded slowly. We called in a psychiatric consult because of her level of distress. During that evaluation, your grandmother disclosed some information that we're legally obligated to report. My hands went cold. What kind of information? Carol looked at me for a long moment, like she was deciding how to say something that couldn't be unsaid. Miss Chen, did your grandmother ever talk to you about her life before she moved to Hudson Falls? She said she moved around a lot, that she lived in Pennsylvania. She never gave details. Carol opened the folder. According to what she told Dr. Ramirez, our psychiatrist, Ruth Chen was born Ruth Kowalski in 1943 in Scranton, Pennsylvania. She was the youngest of 6 children. Her father worked in the coal mines. Her mother took in laundry. The family was very poor. I was listening, but I couldn't make sense of it. She'd never mentioned any of this, not once. When Ruth was 14, Carol continued, her father died in a mining accident. Her mother couldn't support all 6 children. Ruth was sent to live with an aunt and uncle in Philadelphia. She paused. That's where she met Marie. Who is Marie? Carol looked down at the folder. Marie Kowalski was Ruth's older sister. She was 17 when Ruth came to Philadelphia. The two of them were very close, according to what Ruth told Dr. Ramirez. They shared a room in their aunt's house. They worked together at a textile factory. They saved money together. They planned to move to New York together when Marie turned 21. I waited. There was more. I could feel it. In 1962, Carol said quietly, when Ruth was 19 and Marie was 22, something happened. Ruth didn't give all the details, but from what we've pieced together, Marie became pregnant. The father was a man she'd been seeing, someone from the factory. He didn't want anything to do with the baby. Marie was terrified. Abortion was illegal. Unwed mothers were sent away to homes, had their babies taken, were shamed by everyone who knew them. Ruth tried to help her. She tried to find a way, but Marie was desperate. In March of 1962, Marie died. She had tried to end the pregnancy herself. Something went wrong. By the time Ruth found her, it was too late. Oh, God. I whispered it. Oh, God. Carol kept going. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the weight in it. Ruth never forgave herself. She believed she should have done more, should have found help, should have stopped Marie somehow. After Marie died, Ruth left Philadelphia. She changed her name from Kowalski to Chen. She moved to upstate New York. She never contacted her family again. She spent the next 60 years trying to disappear. I sat there, in that plastic chair under those fluorescent lights, and felt something crack open inside my chest. 60 years. Ruth had been carrying this for 60 years. All those mornings at the sink, all that humming, all those locked doors and closed curtains, all that silence. She'd been hiding, not from someone, from herself, from what she couldn't save. Can I see her? I asked. Carol nodded. But, Ms. Chen, there's something else. What? When Ruth was brought in this morning, she had something with her. A small notebook. The hospital staff found it in her purse. It's not our policy to read patients' personal belongings, but given her mental state, we were concerned about potential self-harm. We looked through it. Carol pulled out a small spiral notebook, the kind you'd buy at a drugstore for $2. The cover was blue, worn. The pages inside were filled with handwriting I recognized. Ruth's handwriting. Neat, careful, every letter perfectly formed. What is it? Carol handed it to me. It's a journal. She's been writing in it for years, decades maybe. It's addressed to Marie. I opened it.
The first page was dated January 3rd, 1983. Dear Marie, it began. I'm writing this because I can't say it out loud. I can't tell anyone what happened, but I need to tell you. I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I flipped through the pages, entry after entry, year after year, all of them addressed to Marie, all of them apologies, all of them confessions. I saw my own name appear around 1995. Dear Marie, Ruth had written, I'm taking care of her, your great niece. She's 3 years old. Her parents died, and I'm all she has left. I'm trying to be good to her. I'm trying to give her what I couldn't give you. But I'm so afraid. I'm afraid she'll see what I am. I'm afraid she'll know. My hands were shaking. Carol put her hand on my arm. You should read it, she said gently. All of it. It might help you understand. Understand what? Why your grandmother has been so isolated. Why she's never let anyone close. She's been punishing herself for 60 years, Miss Chen, for something that wasn't her fault. I looked down at the notebook, at Ruth's perfect handwriting, at 60 years of grief compressed into a $2 spiral notebook. I wanted to read it. I wanted to understand, but part of me was terrified because once I read it, once I knew everything, I couldn't unknow it. I couldn't go back to thinking Ruth was just anxious, just private, just the way some people are. I'd have to face the truth that the woman who raised me had been drowning her entire life, and I never even noticed.
I sat in that waiting room for an hour before I opened the notebook again. Carol had left me alone, said I could take my time, said Ruth was sleeping and wouldn't wake for a while. The vending machine hummed, someone's pager went off down the hall, a doctor laughed at something. Life just continuing like normal while I held 60 years of silence in my hands. The entries weren't dated consistently. Sometimes Ruth wrote every day for a week. Sometimes months would pass between entries, but the pattern was always the same. Dear Marie, I'm sorry. I should have done more. I started reading from the beginning. January 1983, the year Ruth bought the house on Maple Street. Dear Marie, I bought a house today, a small one, white siding, green shutters, 3 bedrooms even though it's just me. I keep thinking about the room we shared in Aunt Celia's house, how we'd lie awake talking about the apartment we'd get together in New York. 2 windows, you said. You wanted 2 windows so you could see the sunrise and the sunset. This house has windows everywhere, but I keep the curtains closed. I don't want to see the sunrise. It just reminds me of the morning I found you. I had to stop reading. I had to breathe. The morning I found you. Ruth had found Marie's body. She'd been the one to find her. I kept going. March 1985. Dear Marie, I saw a pregnant woman at the grocery store today. She was maybe 7 months along. She was smiling, rubbing her belly, talking to the baby. I had to leave my cart and walk out. I sat in my car in the parking lot for an hour. I kept thinking about how scared you were, how you cried when you told me, how you said your life was over. If I'd known what to do, if I'd been smarter, braver, you'd be 55 now. You'd probably have other children, a husband, a life. Instead, you're frozen at 22 and I'm 42, and I still don't know how to breathe without feeling guilty. July 1989. Dear Marie, I think I'm forgetting what you looked like. I don't have any photographs. I left everything behind when I left Philadelphia. I didn't want anything that would connect me to what happened. But now I can't remember the exact color of your eyes. I know they were blue, but what kind of blue? Were they light like the sky or dark like the ocean? I can't remember. I can't remember, and it's killing me. I'm forgetting you, and I don't know how to hold on. October 1995. Dear Marie, something terrible happened. There was a car accident. 2 people died. A young couple. They had a daughter, 3 years old. The wife was my second cousin. We weren't close, but she was my only living relative who could take the child. They asked me at the funeral. They said otherwise she'd go into foster care. I said yes. I don't know why I said yes. I can barely take care of myself. But I looked at that little girl and I thought about you,
about how scared you were, about how alone you must have felt. And I thought, maybe this is my chance. Maybe I can save someone this time. Maybe I can do for her what I couldn't do for you. Her name is Mallory. She has dark hair, brown eyes. She's so small. She cries at night. She calls for her mama. I hold her, but I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know if I'm enough. What if I fail her the way I failed you? I had to close the notebook. My vision was blurring. Ruth had taken me in because of Marie, because she'd failed to save her sister, and she thought maybe she could save me instead. I was her second chance, her redemption. Oh God, I'd spent my whole life thinking I was a burden, thinking Ruth had given up everything for me out of obligation, family duty. But it wasn't that at all. She'd taken me in because she couldn't live with herself if she didn't, because every time she looked at me, she saw a chance to rewrite history, to do it right this time. I opened the notebook again. December 1998. Dear Marie, Mallory asked me today why I never got married, why I don't have friends, why we never go anywhere. I didn't know what to tell her. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that you don't deserve those things, that you don't deserve happiness when your sister is dead because of you? I told her some people just like being alone. She looked at me with those big brown eyes and said, "But don't you get lonely, Grandma?" I do, Marie. God, I'm so lonely, but I don't know how to be any other way. June 2003. Dear Marie, Mallory is 11 now. She's smart, curious. She asks questions I can't answer. Today she asked about our family. Who were my parents? Did I have siblings? Where did I grow up? I lied. I told her I didn't remember much, that it was a long time ago. The look on her face, she knew I was lying, but she didn't push. She never pushes. She's a good girl, too good. Sometimes I wonder if she's afraid of me, not physically, but afraid of my sadness, like she thinks if she asks too much, I'll break. Maybe she's right. September 2009. Dear Marie, Mallory left for college today. I helped her pack. I drove her there. I helped her move into her dorm room. She was so excited, so full of life, so full of possibility. I wanted to be happy for her. I am happy for her, but I'm also terrified. What if she never comes back? What if she realizes how empty this house is, how empty I am? What if she finds out the truth about who I am and decides she doesn't want anything to do with me? I drove home and sat in her room. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there in the dark thinking about you, about how you never got to leave, how you never got to have possibilities. And here I am, still alive, still breathing, still taking up space in a world that should have been yours. April 2014. Dear Marie, Mallory graduated college today. I didn't go to the ceremony. I told her I wasn't feeling well. The truth is, I couldn't bear it. I couldn't sit there and watch her succeed and know that you never got the chance. It's not fair. None of this is fair. She called me tonight. I could hear it in her voice, even though she tried to hide it. I'm failing her, Marie, just like I failed you. I'm pushing her away because I don't know how to let anyone close. I don't know how to love without feeling guilty for being alive. January 2018. Dear Marie, I'm 75 today. Mallory came to visit. She brought cake. She brought candles. She sang happy birthday. I made a wish, but it's the same wish I've made for 56 years. I wish I could go back. I wish I could save you. I wish I could trade places with you. I wish you were the one here eating cake with your great niece while I was the one gone. But wishes don't work like that. You're still dead. I'm still here. And I still don't know why. The last entry was dated 3 days ago, August 11th, 2018. Dear Marie, I don't think I can do this anymore. I'm so tired. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of carrying this. I'm tired of watching Mallory grow further and further away from me because I don't know how to be what she needs. I thought if I kept my head down, if I stayed quiet, if I didn't let anyone in, if I punished myself enough, maybe it would balance out. Maybe your death wouldn't be entirely my fault. But it doesn't work like that, does it? Nothing I do will ever bring you back. Nothing I do will ever make it right. I'm sorry, Marie. I'm so sorry. I've been sorry for 56 years, and I'll be sorry until the day I die. And maybe that's my punishment, not death, but living with this and never being free of it. I closed the notebook. My face was wet. I hadn't realized I was crying. All those years, all that silence, all those mornings at the sink and that humming and those locked doors. Ruth hadn't been protecting herself from the world. She'd been protecting the world from her grief. She'd been trying to make herself small enough to disappear, trying to take up as little space as possible because she didn't think she deserved to exist. And I'd lived with her for 18 years and never saw it, never understood. I thought she was just private, just set in her ways, just a grandmother doing her duty. I didn't know she was dying inside every single day for my entire life. How do you miss something like that? How do you live with someone and not see that they're drowning right in front of you?
I found Ruth in room 307. The door was half open. The lights were dimmed. She was lying in the hospital bed with her eyes closed, an IV in her left arm, monitors beeping softly beside her. She looked so small under those white sheets, like she'd shrunk even more since her birthday 3 months ago. I stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching her breathe, in and out, in and out, the same steady rhythm as the water running in that kitchen sink. I had brought the notebook with me. I didn't know what else to do with it. Carol had said I could keep it, said Ruth would probably want me to have it, but holding it felt wrong, like I was carrying something that wasn't meant for me, like I'd opened a door I should have left closed. I pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. Ruth's hands were folded on top of the blanket, those same hands that had folded my laundry with such care, that had made my breakfast every morning, that had held mine when I broke my wrist. They looked different now, thinner, the veins more prominent, the skin almost translucent. I reached out and touched her fingers. They were cold. Ruth's eyes opened slowly. It took her a moment to focus. When she saw me, something passed across her face. Relief, maybe, or fear. I couldn't tell. "Mallory?" she whispered. Her voice was hoarse. "Hey, Grandma. You gave me quite a scare." "I'm sorry." "You don't have to be sorry." I squeezed her hand gently. "How are you feeling?" "Tired." She closed her eyes again. "So tired." "The doctor said you collapsed at the library. You haven't been eating enough, taking care of yourself." "I know. Why didn't you call me?" "I didn't want to bother you." "You're not a bother. You've never been a bother." She didn't respond, just kept her eyes closed. I could see her throat working, like she was trying to swallow something down. "I talked to Carol," I said quietly, "the social worker." Ruth's fingers twitched under mine. "I know about Marie." Her eyes opened, wide, afraid. The monitors beeped faster. Her breathing quickened. "Mallory? It's okay." No, it's not okay." Her voice cracked. "You shouldn't know. You shouldn't have to know." "But I do know, and I need you to understand something." I leaned forward. "What happened to Marie wasn't your fault." She pulled her hand away from mine. "You don't understand." "I do. I read your journal. All of it." Tears started sliding down her face. Silent tears, the kind that come from somewhere so deep they don't make any sound. "You were 19 years old," I said. "Marie was your sister, and she was scared and desperate, and what happened to her was a tragedy, but it wasn't your fault." "I should have stopped her." "How? You didn't know what she was going to do." "I should have known. I should have." "Grandma, listen to me." I waited until she looked at me, really looked at me. "You were a teenager in 1962. You had no resources, no money, no power. Abortion was illegal. Unwed mothers were shamed and ostracized. You did everything you could. You tried to help her. What happened to Marie happened because she lived in a world that gave her no choices, not because you failed her." She shook her head, kept shaking it. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand. Why have you been punishing yourself for 60 years? Why have you been hiding? Why have you been so afraid?" "Because I'm still here," she said. Her voice was barely audible.
Marie died, and I'm still here. I got to live. I got to have a life. I got to. She broke off, sobbing now, real sobs that shook her whole body. I got to have you, and she got nothing. Oh, Grandma. I moved onto the edge of the bed, put my arms around her. She felt like a bird, hollow-boned and fragile. You think you didn't deserve me. She nodded against my shoulder. You think you didn't deserve happiness. She nodded again. You think if you made yourself small enough, if you hid enough, if you suffered enough, it would somehow make up for Marie being gone. Yes, she whispered. Yes. I held her tighter. That's not how it works. That's not what Marie would have wanted. You didn't know her. I didn't, but I know you, and I know that the woman who raised me, who took in a 3-year-old orphan and gave her a home and loved her and sacrificed everything, that woman is not someone who deserves to suffer. You didn't sacrifice. I stayed because of guilt. Maybe at first, I pulled back to look at her face, but not the whole time, not when you sat with me in the emergency room for 6 hours when I broke my wrist, not when you taught me how to cook, not when you drove me to college even though you were terrified I'd never come back. That wasn't guilt, that was love. She closed her eyes. I don't know the difference anymore. I know, and that breaks my heart. We sat there for a long time. The monitors beeping, the hospital sounds filtering in from the hallway, someone laughing at the nurse's station, a phone ringing, life continuing. I thought about all those entries in the notebook, all that apology, all that grief compressed into perfect handwriting, all those years Ruth spent trying to erase herself, trying to take up less space, trying to be less of a burden on a world she thought didn't want her. And I thought about my own life, how I'd moved away, how I'd let the visits get shorter and farther apart, how I'd been so focused on my own freedom that I didn't see what Ruth was actually giving me. Not freedom, permission. Permission to have the life Marie never got. Permission to be happy when Ruth couldn't be. Permission to live fully in a way Ruth had never allowed herself. That's why she'd been so small, so quiet, so invisible. She'd been making room for me, making sure I had space to exist in a way Marie hadn't, in a way Ruth didn't think she deserved. Oh God, my whole childhood, every meal she made, every piece of clothing she folded, every time she stood at that door watching me leave, she'd been saying, I love you, the only way she knew how, by taking up less space so I could take up more. The doctor came in around 8 that evening. Young guy, couldn't have been more than 35. He checked Ruth's vitals, asked her some questions, made notes on a tablet. Physically, you're improving, he said. The IV fluids are helping, your electrolytes are stabilizing, but Miss Chen, I'm concerned about your mental health. We'd like to keep you for a few more days, run some additional evaluations, make sure you're safe to go home. Ruth looked at me, scared, like a child who'd been caught doing something wrong. I'll stay with you, I told her. I'm not going anywhere. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm telling you. The doctor smiled slightly. I'll give you two some privacy. After he left, Ruth started crying again, quieter this time. You have a job. You have a life. I can work remotely for a few days. My boss will understand. But no buts. I'm staying. She looked down at her hands. Why are you being so nice to me? I'm not being nice. I'm being your granddaughter. It's not the same. She was right. It wasn't the same. Nice was obligation. Nice was doing what you were supposed to do. This was something else. This was choosing to stay, choosing to see her, choosing to love her even after knowing the truth, maybe especially knowing the truth. I'm staying, I repeated, and when you get out of here, you're coming home with me. To the city? What? You can't stay in that house anymore. It's not good for you. You're going to live with me for a while, until we figure things out, until you're stronger. Mallory, I can't be a burden to you. You're not a burden. You never were. But, I interrupted her, when I was 3 years old and my parents died, you could have said no. You could have let me go into foster care, but you didn't. You took me in. You gave me a home. You gave me everything you had. She started to protest, but I kept going. Now it's my turn. I'm taking you in. I'm giving you a home, and I'm giving you everything I have. including this. I picked up the notebook from where I'd set it on the bedside table. What are you doing? I walked to the small trash can in the corner of the room. You don't need this anymore. Mallory, no. You've carried it long enough. I held the notebook over the trash can. Ruth's eyes went wide. Wait. I waited. That's all I have left of her. No, it's not. I pulled the notebook back, sat down again. You have your memories, the real ones, not the guilty ones, not the ones you've rewritten 1,000 times trying to figure out what you could have done differently. The actual memories of who Marie was, what she loved, how she laughed, what she dreamed about. Those are what you have left of her, not this. I held up the notebook. This is just pain. This is just 60 years of punishing yourself for something that wasn't your fault. Ruth looked at the notebook, then at me. I don't know how to let it go. I know, but you don't have to do it alone. Not anymore.
Ruth stayed in the hospital for 5 days. I stayed with her every night, slept in the chair by her bed, ate terrible cafeteria food, watched the nurses come and go, listened to her talk when she was ready to talk, listened to her silence when she wasn't. On the second day, Dr. Ramirez came to see her, the psychiatrist Carol had mentioned. She was older than I expected, maybe 60, gray hair cut short, glasses on a chain around her neck. She had this calm way of moving, like nothing could shake her. I'm going to step outside, I said when she arrived. Ruth grabbed my hand. Stay, please. So I stayed. Dr. Ramirez sat in the other chair and smiled at Ruth. How are you feeling today? A little better, physically, anyway. And emotionally? Ruth glanced at me, then back at Dr. Ramirez. Confused, she said quietly. I've spent 60 years feeling one way, believing one thing about myself, and now Mallory is telling me I was wrong. That's disorienting. Dr. Ramirez nodded. Grief has a way of becoming identity. When we carry it long enough, we forget who we were before it. We forget there was ever a before. Yes, Ruth's voice was barely a whisper. Exactly that. Can I ask you something, Ruth? Of course. What would Marie say if she could see you now? Ruth's face crumpled. I don't know. Dr. Ramirez leaned forward slightly. I think you do know. You knew her better than anyone, so what would she say? Ruth was quiet for a long time. The monitors beeped. Someone's footsteps echoed in the hallway. Finally, she spoke. She'd be angry. At me? At herself. Ruth wiped her eyes. Marie was so full of life. She wanted everything. She wanted to travel, to see the ocean, to fall in love properly with someone who deserved her. She had all these plans. She paused. If she could see what I've done with the last 60 years, how I've hidden, how I've wasted it all, she'd be furious. She'd tell me I'm an idiot. Dr. Ramirez smiled gently. She sounds like she was wonderful. She was. So honor her. Don't honor her death. Honor her life. Live the way she wanted to live. Ruth looked down at her hands. I don't know if I remember how. That's okay. You don't have to remember. You just have to try. After Dr. Ramirez left, Ruth was quiet for a long time. I didn't push, just sat there holding her hand. Eventually, she spoke. When you were little, she said, maybe 5 or 6, you asked me if I believed in heaven. I remember. You said you didn't know. Ruth nodded. But that wasn't true. I do believe in heaven, or something like it. I believe Marie is somewhere, and I believe she's been watching me all these years. The thought made me feel worse, like she could see how badly I was failing, how small I'd made myself, how I'd turned her death into my entire existence. She squeezed my hand. But if Dr. Ramirez is right, if Marie really is watching, then she's been watching me waste 60 years, and that's worse than anything else I could have done to her memory. I didn't say anything, just listened. I think I've been afraid, Ruth continued, that if I stopped suffering, if I stopped punishing myself, it would mean Marie's death didn't matter, that I'd forgotten her. But maybe, she trailed off, maybe the opposite is true. Maybe what? Maybe the best way to honor her is to live, to actually live, not just exist. Her voice broke on the last word. On the third day, Ruth started talking about Marie differently, not with guilt, with memory, real memory. She told me about how Marie used to sing in the factory, how the other women would tell her to hush, but she'd just sing louder, how Marie had wanted to be a nurse, but there was no money for school, how she'd sneak books from the library about anatomy and medicine and read them by candlelight after everyone else was asleep. She told me about the night Marie told her she was pregnant, how they'd sat on the fire escape outside their aunt's apartment, how Marie had cried, how Ruth had promised they'd figure it out together, how they'd made a plan to save money, to leave Philadelphia, to go somewhere no one knew them and say Marie was a widow, how the plan had felt possible, for a little while, until it wasn't. And she told me about the morning she found Marie. She didn't want to. I could see her fighting it. But Dr. Ramirez had said that sometimes the only way through grief is to speak it, to let it out into the light, where it can't grow in the dark anymore. It was March 15th, Ruth said, 1962, a Thursday. I'd worked the late shift at the factory, got home around midnight. Marie's bed was empty. I thought maybe she couldn't sleep. Maybe she'd gone for a walk. But it was cold, and Marie hated the cold. I found her in the bathroom. She stopped, took a shaky breath. There was so much blood, Mallory, so much. I didn't know what to do. I was 19. I'd never seen anything like that. I screamed for my aunt. I called for help, but it was too late. She was already gone. I held Ruth while she cried, deep, wrenching sobs that sounded like they were tearing her apart, like 60 years of holding it in had finally broken open. I should have known, she kept saying. I should have stopped her. You couldn't have known. I should have. I stayed up that whole night talking to her, telling her over and over that it wasn't her fault, that she was a child herself, that she'd done everything she could. I don't know if she believed me, but I kept saying it anyway. On the fourth day, Ruth asked me about my life. Really asked. Not the polite questions she usually asked, the real questions. Are you happy, Mallory? I thought about it. Mostly, I said. I like my job. I have friends. I have a decent apartment. Mostly isn't the same as yes. No, it's not. What's missing? I hesitated, then decided to be honest. Connection, I guess. Real connection. I date sometimes, but nothing ever sticks. I have friends, but I don't let them get too close. I'm good at keeping people at arm's length. I paused. I learned from the best. Ruth's face fell. Oh, Mallory, it's not your fault. Yes, it is. No. I squeezed her hand. You did what you thought you had to do. You were protecting yourself the only way you knew how. But I protected myself by pushing everyone away, and I taught you to do the same thing. I never wanted that for you. I know, but it happened anyway. We can't control what we pass down. She looked at me. Her eyes were clearer than I'd seen them in years. So what do we do now? We try something different. Like what? We let people in. We stop hiding. We stop making ourselves small. I smiled. We take up space. Ruth smiled back. It was small, tentative, but it was real. Okay, she whispered. Okay. On the fifth day, Dr. Ramirez cleared Ruth for discharge. Her physical health had stabilized. Her mental health was still fragile, but improving. Dr. Ramirez recommended ongoing therapy, support groups for people dealing with long-term grief, maybe medication if Ruth was open to it. Ruth agreed to all of it. I helped her get dressed, the same clothes she'd been wearing when she collapsed, a floral blouse, brown trousers, that pale blue cardigan with the mismatched buttons. She looked at herself in the small mirror above the sink. I look old, she said. You look beautiful. She smiled sadly. You're a terrible liar. I'm not lying. I stood behind her, looked at our reflection together. You know what I see when I look at you? What? Someone who survived, someone who took in a 3-year-old orphan and raised her and loved her even when she didn't think she deserved to love anyone. Someone who's carried an impossible weight for 60 years and is finally ready to put it down. Ruth's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they looked different, not like grief, like relief. We drove back to Hudson Falls to get Ruth's things. The house on Maple Street looked exactly the same. Sagging porch, green shutters, yellow wallpaper visible through the kitchen window. Ruth stood on the sidewalk, staring at it. I haven't been away from this house in years, she said. How does it feel?
Strange, like looking at someone else's life. We went inside. Everything was exactly as she'd left it. The dishes in the sink, the Afghan draped over the sofa, the family photos on the mantel, photos of me at various ages, my school pictures, my college graduation photo that I'd mailed her, not a single photo of Ruth herself. I started packing her clothes. Ruth wandered through the rooms like she was seeing them for the first time. She stopped in my old bedroom, stood in the doorway looking in. I kept this exactly the way you left it. I know. I hoped you'd come back. I did come back. Not to stay. No, not to stay. I walked over and stood next to her. We both looked at the small bed, the desk where I'd done homework, the closet where I'd hidden when I was scared. This was a good room, I said. You gave me a good childhood. Ruth shook her head. I gave you what I could, but it was never enough. It was enough. I meant it. Despite everything, despite her silence and her fear and her locked doors, despite the distance and the things me never talked about, she'd given me safety, she'd given me stability, she'd given me love in the only way she knew how. And that had been enough. We packed 2 suitcases. Not much. Ruth didn't have much. A week's worth of clothes, some toiletries, a few books, the family photos from the mantel. Before we left, Ruth went down to the basement. I followed her. It was exactly as I remembered. Concrete floor, the furnace, the small window near the ceiling. My old mattress was gone. Ruth had gotten rid of it years ago, but the space still felt the same. Cold, isolated. I used to sleep down here when I first moved in, before you came. Why? I don't know. It felt right, being underground, being hidden. She looked around. I thought I was protecting myself, but
The drive to the city took 2 hours. Ruth was quiet for most of it. She sat in the passenger seat with her hands folded in her lap, watching the landscape change. The small towns giving way to suburbs, the suburbs giving way to highways, the highways giving way to skyline. I'd lived in the city for 6 years, but I'd never brought Ruth here. She'd never asked to visit. I'd never thought to invite her. Now I realized why. She'd been making herself small again, not wanting to intrude, not wanting to take up space in my life. We pulled into the parking garage under my building around 7 in the evening. I lived in a pre-war building in Brooklyn. Nothing fancy, a 1-bedroom on the 4th floor. Big windows, exposed brick, the kind of place that cost too much but felt like home anyway. Ruth stood in the lobby, looking up at the high ceilings, the old tile floor, the Art Deco light fixtures. "It's beautiful," she said. "It's old. So am I." She smiled slightly. "Maybe I'll fit in." We took the elevator up. I unlocked the door to my apartment and suddenly felt nervous, like I was showing her something private, something that might disappoint her. But Ruth walked in slowly, taking it all in. The living room with its mismatched furniture, the kitchen with its tiny stove and single window, the books stacked everywhere, the plants I kept forgetting to water. "You live here alone?" she asked. "Yes." "It feels like you," she said. And I realized she was right. This apartment was everything the house on Maple Street wasn't. Bright, open, full of light, not hiding from anything. I gave Ruth my bedroom, told her I'd sleep on the couch until we figured out something more permanent. She protested, said she couldn't take my bed, said the couch was fine. I insisted. Finally, she agreed. I helped her unpack, we hung her clothes in my closet, put her toiletries in the bathroom, set the family photos on the dresser. When we were done, Ruth sat on the edge of the bed. Just sat there, looking around. "How do you feel?" I asked. "Scared," she said quietly. "Of what?" "Of taking up space, of being a burden, of not knowing how to do this." "Do what?" "Be someone's family. You've always been my family." "Not like this. Before, I was just," she searched for the word, "caretaker, provider, someone on the outside looking in. And now? Now you're asking me to come inside, to be part of your life, and I don't know if I know how to do that." I sat down next to her. "We'll figure it out together. What if I can't? What if I'm too old, too broken?"
"You're not broken. I am Mallory. 60 years of this. 60 years of hiding and hating myself and trying to disappear. You can't just undo that in a week. No, but you can start." Ruth looked at her hands. The same hands that had washed dishes every morning at 5. The same hands that had folded my clothes with such precision. The same hands that had held mine when I was scared. "I'm so tired," she whispered. "I know. I'm so tired of being afraid." "Then stop. It's not that simple." "Maybe it is." I turned to face her. "You've spent 60 years being afraid of living, of taking up space, of being happy. And where did it get you?" She didn't answer. "It got you to a hospital bed, alone, malnourished, thinking you didn't deserve to exist." Her eyes filled with tears. "So maybe it's time to try something different. Maybe it's time to be afraid and do it anyway." "What if I fail?" "Then you fail, and we try again." Ruth looked at me, really looked at me. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from you." She laughed. It came out wet and broken. "That's a terrible answer." "It's the truth. You taught me how to survive. Now let me teach you how to live." That night, I made dinner. Nothing fancy. Pasta with jarred sauce, salad from a bag, garlic bread from the freezer. We sat at my small kitchen table, just the two of us. Ruth kept looking around, at the apartment, at me, at the food on her plate. "This is nice," she said. "It's just pasta." "Not the food. This, sitting at a table with you." We'd eaten together 1,000 times, but she was right. This was different. This wasn't her serving me while she stood in the doorway. This wasn't me visiting out of obligation. This was us, actually together. After dinner, Ruth insisted on doing the dishes. "Old habits," she said. I let her, watched her stand at my sink the way she'd stood at her own sink for 40 years. But something was different. She wasn't humming. She was singing, quietly, almost to herself, but actually singing. "What song is that?" I asked. She stopped, looked surprised, like she hadn't realized she was doing it. She paused. "It's something Marie used to sing, at the factory. I don't even know what it's called. It's pretty." Ruth smiled. She had a beautiful voice, better than mine. I used to beg her to sing to me at night when I couldn't sleep. She always would, even when she was exhausted, even when she had to be up in a few hours for work. She'd sit on the edge of my bed and sing until I fell asleep. She finished the dishes, dried her hands, stood there looking out my kitchen window at the building across the street. For years I couldn't sing it, couldn't even hum it. It hurt too much. But tonight, she trailed off. "Tonight what?" "Tonight it felt okay, like maybe I could remember her without it destroying me." "That's good, Grandma. That's really good." Over the next few days, we fell into a rhythm. I worked from my laptop at the kitchen table. Ruth read, watched TV, went for short walks around the neighborhood. At first, she was hesitant. She'd ask permission for everything. "Is it okay if I make tea? Is it okay if I sit here? Is it okay if I exist in your space?" I kept telling her yes, kept reminding her this was her home now too. Slowly, she started to relax, started to take up a little more space. We'd have breakfast together, I'd work, she'd putter around the apartment, we'd have lunch, more work, more puttering, then dinner. Then we'd sit on the couch and talk, really talk. Ruth told me more about Marie, about their childhood in Scranton, about their father who died in the mines, about their mother who'd worked herself to death trying to feed 6 kids, about the aunt in Philadelphia who'd taken them in but never really wanted them. She told me about the factory where they worked, the noise, the heat, the lint in the air that made everyone cough, the other women who became their friends, the supervisor who was kind to Marie. Too kind, she said. That's how it started, the pregnancy. He was married. He made promises. He lied. And I told her about my life too, the parts I'd never shared, the loneliness I'd felt growing up even though she was there, the way I'd learned to keep people at a distance, the relationships that had failed because I didn't know how to let anyone close. "I'm sorry," Ruth said when I told her. "You don't have to be sorry. I taught you that. You taught me a lot of things, good things too." "Like what?" "Like how to survive, how to keep going even when everything feels impossible, how to show love even when you're terrified." Ruth looked at me. "I showed you love?" "Every day. Maybe not in the ways other people show it, but you showed up, you stayed, you gave me a home. That's love." On the 6th day, we went to the grocery store together. A normal thing, ordinary. But Ruth hadn't been grocery shopping in years. She'd always gone alone. Early morning, get in, get out, never talk to anyone. This time, we went together in the afternoon. The store was crowded, people everywhere, music playing, announcements over the loudspeaker. Ruth gripped the shopping cart handle. Her knuckles were white. "You okay?" "There are so many people." "I know. Is that okay?" She took a breath. "Yes, I think so." We walked through the aisles. I picked items off shelves. Ruth watched. Occasionally, she'd suggest something or point out a sale. Small things. Normal things. At the checkout, the cashiers smiled at us. "You two shopping together today?" "Yes," I said. "This is my grandmother. She's visiting." The cashiers smiled at Ruth. "That's nice. Family time is important." Ruth's face went red. She looked down, but she smiled, a small, shy smile. "Thank you," she said quietly. On the walk back to the apartment, Ruth was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet, not the heavy silence of secrets, something lighter. "What are you thinking about?" I asked. "That cashier," Ruth said. The way she smiled at us, like we were normal, like we were just a grandmother and granddaughter doing ordinary things together. We are normal. We are doing ordinary things. I know, but it's the first time I felt that way. The first time it hasn't felt like I was pretending, like I was wearing a costume of a normal person, but everyone could see through it. She looked at me. "Does that make sense?" Perfect sense. That night, Dr. Ramirez called. She'd been checking in every few days. "How are you feeling, Ruth?" "Better," Ruth said. "More tired than I expected, but better." Tired is normal. You're processing 60 years of grief. That takes energy. Ruth was quiet for a moment. "Dr. Ramirez?" "Yes." "How long does it take?" "How long does what take?" "To forgive yourself." Dr. Ramirez's voice was gentle. "There's no timeline. For some people, it's
2 weeks after Ruth moved in, I came home from a coffee shop where I'd been working and found her standing in the kitchen crying. Not the quiet tears I'd gotten used to, real crying, shoulders shaking, face in her hands, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep. "Grandma, what happened?" She looked up. Her face was blotchy, eyes swollen. "I did something," she said. "Okay, what did you do?" "I called someone." "Who?" "My niece." Ruth had a niece. I didn't know Ruth had a niece. I must have looked confused because she explained. "My brother's daughter, Catherine. She's 60 now, lives in Boston. I haven't spoken to her in 56 years." "Why did you call her?" Ruth wiped her face with a dish towel. "Because Dr. Ramirez asked me who I'd cut out of my life when I left Philadelphia. And I realized it wasn't just Marie I lost. It was everyone, my whole family, my brothers, my sisters, their children. I disappeared and I never looked back." "What did Catherine say?" Ruth's face crumpled again. "She said she'd been looking for me for 30 years. 30 years, Mallory. She said after her father died, she found some old letters I'd written to him from Philadelphia before Marie died. She tried to track me down, but I'd changed my name, changed everything. She thought I was dead." "Oh, Grandma." She cried when I told her I was alive. She cried and said she thought she'd never hear my voice again. And then she asked— Ruth stopped. "Asked what?" "She asked if she could come visit." Ruth nodded. "And I said yes. I said yes, and now she's coming this weekend, and I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know how to see her, how to explain where I've been, what I've done, how I just vanished." "Hey," I put my hands on her shoulders.
"Look at me." She did. "You don't have to explain anything you don't want to explain. You don't owe anyone your trauma." But she'll have questions, probably, and you can answer them if you want, or you can tell her you're not ready, or you can tell her it's private. You get to decide. What if she hates me? For disappearing? For leaving the family? Ruth's voice was small. For being a coward? She won't. How do you know? Because you're not a coward. You were a 19-year-old girl who watched her sister die and didn't know how to survive it. That's not cowardice, that's trauma. Ruth leaned against me, let me hold her. We stood there in the kitchen for a long time. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Yes, you do. You called her. That's the hardest part. Everything else is just showing up." Catherine arrived on Saturday afternoon. I'd cleaned the apartment. Ruth had changed her clothes 3 times. We were both nervous. When the buzzer rang, Ruth looked like she might faint. "I'll get it," I said. I went downstairs to let her in. Catherine was tall, gray hair cut short. Ruth's eyes, the same exact green-gray that Ruth had, the same eyes I'd seen in my grandmother's face my whole life, but never really noticed until now. "You must be Mallory," she said. Her voice was warm, kind. "I'm Catherine. Come on up." We took the elevator in silence. Catherine kept looking at me, smiling. When we got to the apartment, Ruth was standing in the middle of the living room, frozen. Catherine stopped in the doorway. They stared at each other. "Aunt Ruth," Catherine said. It came out like a prayer, like something she'd been holding her whole life and finally got to say out loud. "Catherine." They moved at the same time, met in the middle of the room, held each other, both of them crying. I stepped back, gave them space, watched my grandmother hold someone from her past, someone she'd thought she'd lost forever, someone who'd been looking for her for 30 years. They must have stood there for 5 minutes, just holding each other. Finally, Catherine pulled back, looked at Ruth's face, touched her cheek. "I can't believe it's really you. I can't believe you found me." "I never stopped looking," Catherine said. "Even when everyone else said you were probably dead, even when there was no trail, no evidence, nothing, I knew you were out there somewhere." Ruth's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I disappeared. I'm sorry I left everyone. I'm sorry." "Shh." Catherine pulled her close again. "You don't have to apologize. You don't have to explain. I'm just glad you're here." We sat in the living room. I made tea, brought out cookies I'd bought that morning. Catherine and Ruth sat on the couch together, not touching, but close, like they were afraid the other might disappear. Catherine told us about her life. She was a teacher, high school English, married for 35 years, 3 kids, 5 grandchildren. She showed us photos on her phone. Ruth looked at each one carefully. "These are your grandchildren?" Catherine nodded. "Your great-great-nieces and nephews." Ruth started crying again. "I have family." "You've always had family, Aunt Ruth. We never stopped being your family just because you weren't there. But I left. You survived. That's different." They talked for hours. Catherine asked gentle questions. Ruth answered when she could. When she couldn't, Catherine didn't push. She told Ruth about the family, who was still alive, who had passed. Ruth's brothers were gone, her other sisters too, but there were nieces and nephews, a whole family tree that had kept growing even after Ruth disappeared. "They want to see you," Catherine said. "When I told them I was coming here, when I said I'd found you, they all want to see you." Ruth looked terrified. "I don't know if I'm ready." "That's okay, there's no rush. But they love you, Aunt Ruth. They always have. Even when they didn't know where you were, even when they thought you were gone, they loved you." "How?" Ruth's voice broke. "How could they love me when I abandoned them?" "You didn't abandon them. You were grieving. You were traumatized. You did what you had to do to survive." Ruth shook her head. "You don't understand. I left because I was ashamed, because I couldn't face them, because I thought if they knew what happened to Marie, if they knew I couldn't save her, they'd hate me." Catherine reached for Ruth's hand. "We knew what happened to Marie." "What?" "We knew. My father told me when I was old enough. He told me Marie died from a botched abortion. He told me you found her. He told me you blamed yourself even though it wasn't your fault. Ruth stared at her. You knew? We all knew. And we never hated you. We were worried about you. We wanted to help you, but you disappeared before we could. Oh, God. Ruth covered her face with her hands. All this time, all these years, I thought if anyone knew the truth, they'd see me as a monster, as a failure, and you knew, and you still wanted to find me. Of course we did, Catherine said softly. Your family. That evening, Catherine stayed for dinner. I ordered Chinese food. We ate at the small kitchen table, the three of us, 3 generations. Catherine told stories about Ruth's brothers, about family gatherings Ruth had missed, about weddings and births and funerals, about ordinary life continuing without her. Ruth listened. Sometimes she laughed, sometimes she cried, sometimes she just sat there looking stunned. Before Catherine left, she hugged Ruth again. I'm coming back next month, and I'm bringing my daughter, your great niece. Is that okay? Ruth nodded. Yes, I think I'd like that. Catherine looked at me. Thank you, she said, for taking care of her, for giving her a safe place to land. I didn't do anything special. Yes, you did. You loved her. That's everything. After Catherine left, Ruth sat on the couch staring at nothing. I sat next to her. How do you feel? Confused. In what way? I spent 60 years thinking I was alone, thinking I'd destroyed any chance at family, thinking I didn't deserve to be connected to anyone. And it was all in my head. The isolation, the loneliness, I did that to myself. They wanted me. They were looking for me, and I was hiding. Ruth turned to me. Her face was wet. I wasted so much time, Mallory, so much time. You didn't waste it. You survived it. There's a difference. But I could have. I could have had all these years with them. I could have known my nieces and nephews. I could have been part of their lives. But you didn't know that. You thought you were protecting them, protecting yourself. You did what you thought you had to do. Ruth leaned her head on my shoulder. When does it stop hurting? The regret, the looking back and seeing all the ways I got it wrong. I don't know. Maybe never. But maybe that's okay too. How is that okay? Because regret means you're growing. It means you can see now what you couldn't see then. That's not a bad thing. It feels bad. I know. We sat there for a long time. Outside, the city hummed, cars honking, people laughing, sirens in the distance. Life continuing. Life always continuing. Do you think Marie would forgive me? Ruth asked quietly. For hiding for 60 years? For wasting all this time? I think Marie would want you to forgive yourself. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. Ruth was quiet. Then, I think you're right. I think she would. And I think that's what I'm most afraid of. What do you mean? I'm afraid if I forgive myself, if I let go of the guilt, I'll forget her. I'll forget what happened. I'll forget that she deserved better. You won't forget her. How do you know? Because love doesn't work like that. You can forgive yourself and still love her. You can move forward and still carry her with you, just not in the same way, not as guilt, as memory, as part of who you are. Ruth nodded slowly. I want to believe that. Then believe it. That night, I heard Ruth in the bedroom. I thought she might be crying.
3 weeks later, Ruth asked if we could go to Philadelphia. I was making coffee. She was sitting at the kitchen table with her hands wrapped around a mug of tea, just sitting there, looking out the window at nothing in particular. Go to Philadelphia? I repeated. She nodded. I need to see it. The building where we lived, the factory, the place where Marie... She stopped. Where it happened. Are you sure? No. Her voice was quiet. But I think I need to do it anyway. We drove down on a Saturday morning. Catherine came with us. She'd insisted, said Ruth shouldn't have to do this alone, said she wanted to be there. The drive took 2 hours. Ruth was quiet most of the way, staring out the window, watching the landscape change. Every now and then, she'd point something out, a sign, a landmark, something she remembered from 60 years ago. That diner used to be there, she'd say, or I think that's where the bus station was.
Everything looked different, smaller. The city had grown, changed. The Philadelphia Ruth remembered was gone, but pieces of it were still there, ghosts of what used to be. Catherine had done research, found the address of the aunt's building, found the location of the factory, made a list of places Ruth had mentioned. We started with the factory, or what was left of it. The building was still standing, but it wasn't a textile factory anymore. It was lofts now, expensive apartments with floor-to-ceiling windows and rooftop gardens. Ruth stood on the sidewalk looking up at it. "We worked on the third floor," she said. "Marie and me. There were maybe 40 women in that room, all of us at sewing machines. The noise was constant. You couldn't hear yourself think." "What was it like?" Catherine asked. "Hot, loud, exhausting." Ruth's voice was distant, like she was seeing it all again. "We'd work 10-hour shifts, sometimes 12. The pay was terrible, but it was better than nothing. Marie was faster than me, better at it. The supervisor always praised her work." She paused. "That's how it started. The pregnancy. He'd single her out, tell her she was doing good work, ask her to stay late to finish orders. And she was so grateful for the attention, for someone noticing her. She didn't see what he was really doing until it was too late." We stood there for a long time, just looking at the building. "Do you want to go inside?" I asked. Ruth shook her head. "No, I just needed to see it, to remember that it was real, that we were real." Next, we drove to the aunt's building. It was in a neighborhood that had changed even more. The building itself was abandoned, windows broken, door boarded up, graffiti on the walls. Ruth got out of the car slowly, walked up to the front steps, put her hand on the railing. "We lived on the second floor," she said. 2 rooms, a bedroom we shared and a kitchen. The bathroom was down the hall. We shared it with 3 other families. Catherine stood beside her. "What was it like?" "Cramped. Cold in winter, sweltering in summer. But Marie made it home. She'd hang fabric from the factory on the walls, make curtains. She'd find flowers in the park and put them in jars on the windowsill. She'd sing while she cooked. Awful food. We didn't know how to cook. But she'd sing, and it made everything better." Ruth's voice broke. "The fire escape was on the back of the building. That's where we'd sit when it got too hot inside. That's where she told me she was pregnant, March 10th, 1962. We sat out there and she cried, and I promised her we'd figure it out. I promised her everything would be okay." She stopped, took a shaky breath. 5 days later, she was dead. Catherine put her arm around Ruth, held her while she cried. "I need to see the apartment," Ruth said suddenly. "Aunt Ruth, the building's abandoned. It's not safe." "I don't care. I need to see it." We looked at each other, Catherine and me. Then Catherine nodded. "Okay, but I'm coming with you." The front door was boarded up, but someone had pried the boards loose. We slipped inside. The hallway was dark, smelled like mold and rot and time. The walls were water-stained, plaster falling, exposed beams. Ruth moved like she knew exactly where she was going. Up the stairs, 2nd floor, 3rd door on the left. The door was open, hanging on one hinge. Inside, the apartment was gutted. No furniture, no walls, just studs and debris and pigeons roosting in the corners. But Ruth stood in the center of the space and pointed. The bedroom was there. The kitchen was there. The bathroom was down the hall. She walked to what used to be a window, looked out at nothing. Marie's bed was right here. Mine was against the other wall. We'd lie there at night talking about what we'd do when we saved enough money. We were going to get our own apartment in New York, a real apartment with 2 bedrooms and a bathroom of our own, and windows that locked. She turned to face us. The morning I found her, she was in the bathroom. There was blood everywhere. On the floor, on the walls, on her nightgown. I screamed for my aunt. I screamed for help, but it was too late. By the time anyone came, she was already gone. Ruth sat down on the floor, right there in the dust and debris. Catherine and I sat on either side of her. I should have known, Ruth said. She'd been acting strange for days, quiet, distant. She wouldn't eat, wouldn't talk. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she was fine, just tired. I should have known she wasn't fine. I should have pushed harder. You were 19, Catherine said gently. You were a kid yourself. I was her sister. I was supposed to protect her. You tried. You did everything you could. It wasn't enough. We sat there in that ruined apartment for a long time, the three of us, not talking, just being there. Finally, Ruth spoke again. After Marie died, I couldn't stay. Everyone looked at me like I'd killed her myself, like I was responsible. The priest at the funeral said Marie died in sin, said she couldn't be buried in the Catholic cemetery, said she'd go to hell for what she'd done. Her voice was shaking. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tell him that Marie didn't die in sin. She died in fear, in desperation, in a world that gave her no choices. But I didn't say anything. I just stood there and let them bury her in a pauper's grave outside the city. And then I left, changed my name, changed everything, tried to become someone else. Did it work? Catherine asked quietly. No. Ruth smiled sadly. You can't outrun grief. It follows you everywhere. It becomes you. God, it really does. We left the building, drove to the cemetery where Marie was buried. Catherine had found the location, a small cemetery on the outskirts of the city, mostly unmarked graves, mostly forgotten people. It took us an hour to find Marie's grave. There was no headstone, just a small metal marker with a number on it. Ruth stood there looking at it, this weathered piece of metal in the ground, the only thing marking where her sister had been buried for 62 years. She knelt down, put her hand on the marker. Hi, Marie. It's me, Ruth. I know it's been a long time, too long. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner. I'm sorry I left you here alone. She was crying now, but her voice was steady. I want you to know I never forgot you, not for a single day. I carried you with me everywhere. Maybe too much, maybe in the wrong way, but I carried you. She paused, took a breath. 5 years later, I blamed myself for what happened to you. 60 years thinking I killed you, thinking I should have done more, should have been smarter, braver, better. But I'm trying to understand now that it wasn't my fault, that you died because the world failed you, not because I did. And I'm trying to forgive myself, even though it's the hardest thing I've ever done. Ruth wiped her eyes. I met your family. Your great niece, Catherine. She's here with me. She's been looking for me for 30 years. Can you believe that? 30 years. And I was hiding the whole time, thinking no one wanted me, thinking I didn't deserve to be found. She laughed softly. I was so stupid, Marie, so scared. I wasted so much time. But I'm not wasting it anymore. I'm living now, really living. I'm letting people in. I'm letting people love me. I'm taking up space in the world instead of trying to disappear. And I wanted you to know that. I wanted you to know I'm okay. Finally, after all these years, I'm okay. Ruth stayed there for a long time, just kneeling by the grave, talking to her sister, telling her about me, about Catherine, about the life she'd lived and the life she was trying to live now. Catherine and I stood back, gave her space, gave her time. Eventually, Ruth stood up. She looked smaller somehow, but lighter too, like she'd put down something heavy she'd been carrying for too long. Before we left, Catherine asked if Ruth wanted to put up a proper headstone. Ruth looked at her, then back at the grave. Yes, she said. Yes, I'd like that. What should it say? Ruth thought for a moment. Marie Kowalski, 1940 to 1962. Beloved sister, gone too soon. She paused.
A month after Philadelphia, Ruth started therapy. Real therapy, not just phone calls with Dr. Ramirez, an actual therapist she saw once a week in an office in Manhattan. Her name was Dr. Patel. She specialized in complex grief and trauma. Catherine had helped Ruth find her, made the calls, set up the appointment, went with Ruth to the first session. I didn't ask Ruth what they talked about. That was private, between her and Dr. Patel. But I could see the changes. Small things at first. Ruth started sleeping better. The nightmares that had woken her up for years, the ones where she found Marie over and over again, they came less frequently. Some nights she slept through till morning. She started eating more, actually eating, not just picking at food. She'd sit at the table and finish her meals. Sometimes she'd even ask for seconds. She started leaving the apartment without me, just small trips at first, to the corner store, to the coffee shop down the block. But she'd go alone. She'd walk out the door and come back an hour later with groceries or a book or nothing at all, just the walk itself. "I'm trying to take up space," she told me one evening. "That's what Dr. Patel says. She says I've spent my whole life trying to be invisible, and now I need to practice being visible." How does it feel? Terrifying, Ruth smiled. But good. Good terrifying. One Saturday morning, Ruth came out of the bedroom dressed in clothes I'd never seen before. New clothes, a sweater in deep purple, jeans that actually fit, shoes that weren't worn down at the heels. "Where did you get those?" I asked. "I went shopping," she said, "yesterday, while you were at the office." "You went shopping? Alone?" She nodded. "I walked into a store and a saleswoman asked if I needed help, and I almost left, almost ran out, but I made myself stay. I made myself say yes. I need help finding clothes that fit." The saleswoman had been kind, Ruth said, patient. She'd brought Ruth different sizes, different styles, told her what looked good, what didn't, treated her like a normal person shopping for clothes. "Which is what I am," Ruth said quietly, "a normal person. I keep forgetting that." "You're not just normal," I said. "You're extraordinary." She looked at me. "Don't." "Don't what?" "Don't make me into something special. I'm just a person who's been broken for a long time and is trying to put herself back together. That's all." "That's everything." Ruth shook her head, but she was smiling. That same week, Ruth joined a grief support group. Dr. Patel had suggested it, a group for people who'd lost siblings, people who understood what it meant to lose someone and never quite find your way back. The first meeting was on a Wednesday evening. Ruth was nervous, changed her clothes 3 times, almost backed out twice, but she went. She came home 2 hours later. Her eyes were red, but something in her face had shifted. "How was it?" I asked. "Hard," she said, "but good." There were 8 people there. All of us had lost brothers or sisters, some recently, some decades ago. And we talked about it, about what it feels like, about how no one else really understands. She sat down at the kitchen table. There was a woman there, Linda. She lost her sister 40 years ago, car accident. And she said something that... Ruth's voice broke. She said she spent years thinking if she was sad enough, if she suffered enough, it would bring her sister back, like the universe was keeping score, like if she punished herself enough, it would balance out. That sounds familiar. That's what I said. Ruth wiped her eyes, and Linda looked at me and said, "But it doesn't work that way, does it? The suffering doesn't bring them back. It just makes us disappear too." "Oh, Grandma!" "She's right, Mallory. I've been disappearing for 60 years, trying to join Marie instead of trying to live without her. And now? Now I'm trying to stay, to be here, to exist." She started going to the group every week, made friends there, real friends, people she'd meet for coffee after the meetings, people she'd text during the week when she was having a hard day. I came home one Thursday and found Ruth sitting at the kitchen table with another woman. They were drinking tea, laughing about something. "Mallory, this is Linda from the group. I hope it's okay. I invited her over." "Of course it's okay." I smiled at Linda. "It's nice to meet you." "Mallory has told me so much about you," Linda said. "You're the granddaughter who saved her life." "I didn't save her life."
Yes, you did, Ruth said quietly. You absolutely did. After Linda left, Ruth was glowing, practically vibrating with energy. I had a friend over, she said. I had a friend in my home, our home, and it was normal. It was just two people having tea and talking. But it felt, she searched for the word, miraculous. That night, Ruth cooked dinner, really cooked, not just heating something up. She made chicken and vegetables and rice, set the table, lit a candle. What's all this? I asked. I wanted to do something nice, she said. For you, for us. We ate together, talked about our days. Normal conversation, the kind of conversation families have, the kind Ruth and I had never really had before. After dinner, Ruth pulled out a notebook. Not the old one, a new one. Clean pages, a fresh start. Dr. Patel suggested I keep a journal, she said, but not like before, not letters to Marie filled with apologies, just thoughts, feelings, what I'm grateful for each day. She opened to the first page, showed me. Today, I'm grateful for Mallory, for this apartment, for the fact that I'm still alive to try again. Below that, more entries, days of gratitude, small things, big things, all of it adding up to a life. That's beautiful, I said. It feels strange, Ruth admitted. After 60 years of writing about what I lost, writing about what I have feels almost wrong, like I'm betraying Marie by being happy. You're not betraying her. I know. Dr. Patel says the same thing. She says Marie would want me to be happy, would want me to live. She's right. Ruth closed the notebook, set it aside. There's something else I want to do, she said. What? I want to get my GED. I stared at her. Your GED? She nodded. I never finished high school. I left school when I was 14 to work, and I've spent my whole life feeling stupid because of it, feeling less than. You're not stupid. I know that now, but I want to prove it to myself. I want to finish something I started 60 years ago. So she enrolled in a GED program at the community college, classes 2 nights a week, math and English and science, things she thought she'd forgotten, things she remembered better than she expected. She'd come home from class excited, talking about what she'd learned, showing me her homework, asking for help when she didn't understand something. I'm the oldest person in the class by 30 years, she told me, but I don't care. I'm doing this for me. She studied at the kitchen table every night, practiced math problems, wrote essays, read books she'd never had time to read before. I'm learning, she said one night. At 75 years old, I'm still learning, and it feels, she smiled, it feels wonderful. 2 months later, Ruth took the GED exam. She was terrified, couldn't sleep the night before, but she showed up, took the test, did her best. The results came back 3 weeks later. She passed. Not just passed, scored high enough that the testing center sent her a letter of commendation. Ruth cried when she read it. Happy tears. The first happy tears I'd ever seen her cry. I did it, she said. I actually did it. We celebrated that night, went to a nice restaurant. Ruth ordered wine. We toasted to her accomplishment, to her courage, to her decision to try. At the restaurant, a waiter asked what we were celebrating. Ruth looked at me, then back at him. I'm celebrating myself. The first time in my life, I'm celebrating myself. The waiter smiled. That's the best reason there is. On the way home, Ruth was quiet, but it was a comfortable quiet, a peaceful quiet. Thank you, she said as we walked. For what? For believing I could do this, for believing I was worth saving. You saved yourself, Grandma. I just gave you a place to land. She squeezed my hand. You gave me more than that. You gave me permission to exist, to take up space, to believe that my life still matters. It does matter. I know that now, she said. I finally know that now. That night, Ruth wrote in her journal. I saw her at the kitchen table, the new notebook open in front of her. Her handwriting still perfect, still careful, but the words were different now. I didn't read what she wrote, that was private, but I could see from across the room that it wasn't an apology. It was something else, something that looked like hope.
6 months after Ruth moved in with me, Catherine called with news. "We're having a family reunion," she said. "In Boston, July. The whole family. Everyone who's left. Everyone who remembers Aunt Ruth. Everyone who wants to meet her." Ruth was standing next to me. I had the phone on speaker. She went pale. "I don't know," she said. "That's a lot of people." 63 people, Catherine said, give or take. Cousins, second cousins, great nieces and great nephews, kids, grandkids, the whole family tree. Ruth sat down, put her head in her hands. "That's too many. I can't." "You can," Catherine said gently, "but only if you want to. No pressure, no obligation, just an invitation, an open door." After the call ended, Ruth sat at the kitchen table for an hour, just sat there, not moving, barely breathing. "Talk to me," I said. "I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of all those people looking at me, judging me, seeing the woman who disappeared, who abandoned the family, who wasted 60 years hiding. They don't see you that way." "How do you know?" "Because Catherine told you. They've been looking for you. They've been waiting for you. They love you." Ruth shook her head. "They love the idea of me, the aunt they never met, the mystery, but when they see the real me, when they see how broken I am." "You're not broken." "I am. I'm 75 years old and I'm just learning how to exist, how to be a person. Most people figure that out by the time they're 20. Most people don't go through what you went through." She looked at me. Her eyes were wet. "What if I go and I can't do it? What if I get there and I freeze up? What if I ruin it?" "Then you ruin it, and we leave and we try again another time." "You'd come with me?" "Of course I'd come with you. I'm not letting you do this alone." Ruth nodded slowly. Okay, I'll think about it." She talked to Dr. Patel about it, talked to Linda from the grief group, talked to herself in her journal every night. Finally, a week before the reunion, she decided. "I'm going," she told me. "I'm terrified, but I'm going." We drove to Boston on a Saturday morning. The reunion was at a park, big open space, picnic tables, a playground, trees everywhere. Catherine had sent Ruth a family tree, names and faces, relationships mapped out. Ruth studied it every night, memorizing who was who belonged to whom. She was still studying it in the car. "I'm never going to remember everyone," she said. "You don't have to remember everyone. Just be yourself. That's enough." She laughed. "Myself. I'm still figuring out who that is." When we pulled into the parking lot, Ruth's hands started shaking. "There are so many cars," she said. "There are a lot of people who want to see you. What if they're disappointed?" "They won't be." We sat in the car for 10 minutes, Ruth breathing, trying to calm herself, trying to find the courage to open the door. Finally, she looked at me. "I can do this," she said. It sounded like she was trying to convince herself. "You can do this." She opened the door, got out, stood there in the parking lot looking toward the park. I could see people, dozens of people, families scattered across picnic tables, kids running, adults talking. Catherine was waving from one of the tables. Ruth took a step, then another. I walked beside her. As we got closer, people started noticing, started pointing, started standing up. "Is that her?" I heard someone say. "That's Aunt Ruth. She's here. She's actually here." And then Catherine was running towards us, pulling Ruth into a hug. "You came," she said. "I wasn't sure you would, but you came." Ruth was crying already. "I came." Catherine pulled back, looked at Ruth's face. "Ready?" "No, but let's do it anyway." Catherine led us to the largest picnic table. People gathered around, tentative, respectful, waiting. "Everyone," Catherine said loudly, "this is Aunt Ruth, and this is her granddaughter, Mallory." The crowd erupted, not with applause, with something quieter, with murmurs of welcome, with smiles, with tears. An older man stepped forward. He had Ruth's eyes too, that same green-gray. "I'm Thomas, your nephew, John's son." Ruth stared at him. "Tommy?" He laughed. "No one's called me that in 40 years, but yes, Tommy." They hugged, long and hard, both of them crying.
Then others came forward, one by one, introducing themselves, hugging Ruth, welcoming her. I'm Sarah. I'm David. I'm Elizabeth. I'm your great-niece. I'm your second cousin. I'm your brother's granddaughter. Ruth tried to keep track, tried to remember, but there were too many names, too many faces, too many people who loved her without ever knowing her. Eventually, someone brought chairs. Ruth sat down, people gathered around, not crowding, just close enough to hear, close enough to be part of it. Someone asked her to tell them about herself, about where she'd been, what she'd been doing. Ruth looked panicked, looked at me. I squeezed her hand. You don't have to tell them everything, just tell them what you want them to know. She took a breath. I've been hiding, she said quietly, for a long time, since 1962. Since I was 19, since I lost someone I loved and didn't know how to keep living. The crowd was silent, listening. I changed my name, I moved away, I cut off contact with everyone because I thought, she paused, I thought I didn't deserve to be part of a family. I thought I'd failed, and I spent 60 years punishing myself for it. Someone in the crowd started crying, a young woman, maybe 30. But I'm here now, Ruth continued. I'm here because my granddaughter wouldn't let me disappear, because she loved me even when I didn't love myself, because she gave me a reason to try again. She looked at me. And I'm here because Catherine found me, because she never stopped looking, because she reminded me that family doesn't give up on you just because you give up on yourself. Thomas stepped forward again, knelt down in front of Ruth. We never stopped loving you, Aunt Ruth, even when we didn't know where you were, even when we thought you were gone. We never stopped. Ruth touched his face. I'm sorry I left. I'm sorry I wasted so much time. You're here now. That's what matters. The afternoon passed in a blur. Ruth met everyone, talked to everyone, held babies she'd never met, looked at photos of family members she'd never known existed. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, climbed into Ruth's lap. Are you my great-great-aunt? She asked. Ruth smiled. I think so. What's your name? Emma. It's nice to meet you, Emma. You're really old, Emma said, matter-of-factly, the way children do. Ruth laughed, a real laugh. Yes, I am. I'm very old. Did you know dinosaurs? Ruth laughed harder. No, sweetheart, not quite that old. Emma seemed disappointed, but she stayed in Ruth's lap anyway, playing with Ruth's necklace, asking questions, not caring about the past, just existing in the present. I watched Ruth hold that little girl, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Peace. Real peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of something stronger. Connection, belonging, family. Later, as the sun started to set, people began packing up, saying goodbye, making Ruth promise to come back, to stay in touch, to not disappear again. I won't, Ruth said. I promise. I'm done disappearing. Catherine hugged her one more time. I'm so proud of you, for coming, for being brave. I'm proud of me too, Ruth said, and she meant it. On the drive home, Ruth was quiet, but it was a different quiet than before, lighter. How do you feel? I asked. Exhausted, she said, but good, really good. She looked out the window, watched the landscape pass. I have a family, she said, softly. After all these years of thinking I was alone, I have a family. You always did. I know that now. We drove in silence for a while, then Ruth spoke again. I want to tell you something. Okay? I've been thinking about Marie a lot today, about what she would say if she could see all this, if she could see me surrounded by family, by people who love me. What do you think she'd say? I think she'd tell me I'm an idiot, Ruth smiled, for wasting 60 years, for hiding, for thinking I didn't deserve this. She paused. But I also think she'd be happy. I think she'd be relieved that I finally figured it out, that I finally let myself live. I think so too. Ruth was quiet for another moment, then she said something that made my heart break and heal at the same time. I'm going to be okay, Mallory. For the first time in 60 years, I actually believe that. I'm going to be okay. I reached over and squeezed her hand. Yeah, Grandma, you are. That night, Ruth wrote in her journal, "I saw her at the kitchen table. The apartment was quiet, just the sound of her pen moving across the page. I didn't ask what she was writing, but later, after she'd gone to bed, I saw the journal lying open on the table. I know I shouldn't have looked, but I did." The entry was dated that day, July 16th, 2019. It said, "Dear Marie, I met our family today. All of them, 63 people who share our blood, our history, our name. They welcomed me. They loved me. They didn't judge me for leaving. They were just happy I came back. I wish you could have been there. I wish you could have met them, your great nieces and great nephews, your legacy continuing long after you were gone. But I know you were there in some way. I felt you, in the laughter, in the hugs, in the little girl who climbed into my lap and asked if I knew dinosaurs. I'm writing this to tell you something I've never been able to say before. I forgive myself for not saving